The conflict in the Gulf is escalating and all eyes are on the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. military says it has destroyed 16 Iranian mine-laden vessels near the strait after reports that Iran may deploy mines in shipping lanes. As you can see, oil reacts higher on the day. Welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Taylor Riggs, along with my co-hosts David Asman, Brian Brenberg, Jackie DeAngelis, and with us for the hour, Fox News contributor DeRoy Murdoch. Great to have you.
Great to see you guys.
So roughly 20% of the world's oil and gas move through that corridor, and it continues to be the main source of leverage for Iranians in this conflict. The White House insists that short-term volatility will lead to long-term stability.
The president and his energy team are closely watching the markets, speaking with industry leaders, and the U.S. military is drawing up additional options following the president's directive to continue keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. Rest assured to the American people, the recent increase in oil and gas prices is temporary, and this operation will result in lower gas prices in the long term.
So the president says this operation could wrap up very soon, but price shock at the pump is a risk. According to AAA, the national average price for a gallon of regular gasoline is up about 20% so far this month. So, DeRoy, look, we can debate the short-term cost versus the long-term benefits. Is it worth it? Is it not? How do you come down on this?
Yeah, I think it is worth it, certainly in terms of long-term benefit of completely crippling Iran. I don't think we'll have to worry about a nuclear weapon coming out of there anytime soon. I'm not sure they'll be able to throw a grenade in another week or two. So that's good news. That's very good news. Obviously, in the short term, we have the problem of high oil prices, the overall economic volatility that creates. The sooner we can get ships in to escort the tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, the better. I'm not a big expert on military tactics, but one thing that might be interesting to try, a little bit different, since the biggest customer for Iran for their oil is China, what if we had Chinese warships accompanying U.S. and allied warships going through the Strait of Hormuz? I think the Chinese would be very disinclined to open fire on any ships that belong to their biggest customer. They have enough enemies without having to add the People's Republic of China to that enemies list. And I don't think this would be any morally different than the U.S. and the Soviet Union teaming up against Nazi Germany back in the 1940s. This is not something I suggest on a long-term basis, but on a short-term basis, perhaps bringing the Chinese Navy in to help defend oil tankers might be a good idea.
Wow. Interesting. We'd have to see if they'd be willing to do that, given they've stayed sort of mum on this
They've been very quiet, haven't
so
they?
far.
Very quiet.
Hard to have friends who don't show up for you when you need them,
That's
right,
true.
DeRoy?
Absolutely.
So, Jackie, I wanted to come to you, and I wanted to sort of maybe you can explain this to me. The International Energy Agency came out with a bombshell this morning. They want to release about 400 million barrels into supply. My confusion, I thought, is, and yesterday we were talking about this, we are oversupplied. We're just having a transportation problem. Does this help some of the transport problems? Because we don't need more oil, we just need to get it moving. And 400 million barrels sounds like a lot, but I think under my estimates, that's about a month. I guess that's good. That could buy us about 4 weeks' time. How do you see this?
So this is the big news that I thought really pressed oil prices down from that peak that we saw on Sunday night. I believe it was of $119 a barrel. That and the president's address on Monday, where he was talking about the duration of this and how successful the operations have been. Everything is on target, if not ahead of schedule, according to the president of the United States. And I have confidence in what he is telling everybody. I love the transparency. I like the way he's keeping the markets and the American people updated on this operation. But with respect to the IEA, the 400 million barrels, to put in context, is more than double what the IEA released in 2022 when oil spiked on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, you're talking about the shipping versus the supply aspect of this. What I think it does, well, we don't need the supply per se. The concern is whatever we do need out of the region doesn't get out because of the shipping issues. When you flood the market with oil like this in this way, it reassures the market that it will get what it needs if it needs it. And I think that's what the IEA is trying to do here. It's nice to see all the allies come together too and not have this be a United States driven kind of thing and say, okay, we've got a crisis in the market internationally and we are going to help with that. So I think what it does is just signal that the oil is there if it's needed, and that if things become hairy in the strait, there's less reason for the market to panic. Now, from that $119 mark that I talked about on Sunday night, we then went down to close yesterday at $85 a barrel. So you're seeing a little bit of a spike today, but that is a massive, massive swing and a huge win for, the oil markets, the American people. I'm not saying this reflects immediately at the pump.
Right.
The pain's going to be there for a while, but if the president is accurate on duration, which again, I'll reiterate, I think he is, everything should be okay.
So, David, I want to talk about price at the pump because we combined that with CPI this morning. Here was something I read that really stood out to me. Food and energy components of CPI make up 20% of the consumer basket, but they punch above their weight in terms of shaping my perception on inflation. So it's not just oil. When we talk about the Strait of Hormuz, it's fertilizer, it's goods, it's commodities. And we know that oil also goes into everything that we produce. So I'm a little worried that upside inflation is coming and it may be very painful for consumers.
I am too, but of course it is the core inflation rate that is of most interest to the Fed. Next week they get together to decide what to do, and the core takes both food. I don't think it's a smart idea. I think it's better to get a more complete picture, but they look closely at that. And the good news, we buried the good news, which is this inflation report came in exactly as expected, both in the monthly and in the annual. In other words, inflation was going in that direction toward the Fed targets. But of course, it was dealing with numbers that happened before the Iran war. So clearly, if you factor the Iran war in that, the non-core inflation would have been much higher because of what's happened with energy. Having said all that, when you think of what we have now, the access to oil, as Jackie was talking about, that is really flooding the world with possibilities of cheaper energy all over the world, is extraordinary. And in particular, the United States, not only are drilling here and more access to things like the Gulf oil, the Gulf of America oil, which could get an extra 2 million barrels a day, and our Venezuelan U.S. oil projects, which are going to create a tremendous excess of oil in the Western Hemisphere. That will go directly into the U.S., which now has another refinery in Texas.
Yeah.
First refinery to open in the United States in a long time. And Brian is clapping because I am too. I mean, this is great news. So we are on the edge of much cheaper energy in the United States, with the exception, I would say, of blue states that feel compelled to make their state residents suffer as a result of their regulations. I think the panicans are overdoing it.
Okay.
I think people are panicking more than they should. We see the Dow now down over 500 points. I don't think that's justified by all the other things I mentioned. However, I must say, in a war, anything could happen, and that's the thing that makes me nervous.
So, Brian, I'm going to be one of those panicans for a minute here. One note that I was reading, it only has a probability of about 10%, but that is like the full regime change, where you go back to Jackie's utopia pre-1979. Only in that situation do some analysts see oil going back down to 60. The other scenarios are 75 to 90. 110 to 140 if this goes on and is sort of a prolonged issue. What do you make of that?
I don't know that they know what they're talking about. I think there's
come on.
There's too many ways this what have they forecasted correctly? Show me like a great track record and I'll believe you on that one. I don't think they know. I don't know where oil's going to go, by the way, either. But I can. There's a few things I want to see happen. Okay. Now I love DeRoy. I love your creative thinking.
Yeah, out of the box.
I don't want China's Navy anywhere near the Strait of Hormuz. Okay. Just like I don't want them anywhere near the Panama Canal. I don't want them near any strategic pathways for shipping.
Not even for a couple weeks?
Not even for a couple.
All right.
Oh, because they're not moving in for a couple weeks. They are staying forever. Then we got China in the Strait of Hormuz problem. So I don't want that. One thing I was encouraged by, because ultimately, this is only going to really resolve, and I think you're only going to get back down to lower prices, and the experts say, if the Strait of Hormuz is secure, more secure than it was before all this started. To make that happen, you have to destroy all of Iran's capabilities. Now, President Trump, in the intro that you did, said there's hardly anything left, right? It's drips and drabs and here and there. I wish what he'd say actually is, we are going to take all the firepower we have, and we are going to bring it to bear in the Strait of Hormuz, and we are gonna sink every last canoe, pontoon, and BB gun dispenser they've got in that region. We are blowing them out of the water. That's what I want to hear him say, because when he says that and shows that focus and does it, then the world says we don't even need escorts anymore. Forget China or U.S. escorts. The Strait is safe. Here's the one thing I read just a few moments ago that gives me hope for that. Okay, so CENTCOM says. To civilians, do not use any civilian ports along the Strait of Hormuz. Get out of there, because Iran's using those ports to wage war in the Strait. And if they're doing that, those are not safe anymore. We're going to bomb those things. So what it tells me is the U.S. is getting ready to do what I hope they're going to do. And if they can obliterate the problem in the Strait like they've done in the rest of the country, then I think the oil prices start coming back down and we stop with this whole temporary thing.
That's a very interesting point, this business about the civilian ports. It reminds me a bit of the way Hamas operates. Hamas hiding in schools and hospitals.
Exactly.
So they hide out in a civilian, just regular yacht boat base, and everyone thinks, oh, those are just people going out enjoying a lovely day on the Gulf, when in fact you've got essentially warships there. So that's a very good point. Get the civilians out of the way, expose the Iranians, and blast them right down the last slingshot.
Right.